My name is Ray Grady. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Conexiom. We are an automation platform that focuses on order to cash and procure to pay. And what we're going to talk about today is what we're seeing in the marketplace and what we're seeing modern businesses do to better support their customers and better optimize their staff to make for a happier customer, happier staff, and ultimately a more profitable business. Just as a matter of introduction, I have Laura Sarazin on the phone with me. Laura is my systems engineer, and she's going to show you what we do here later in the presentation. I spent most of my career in e-commerce, 20 plus years. I in consulting. Also, I ran Salesforce's B2B e-commerce business and moved to Conexiom a little over a year and a half ago. So I can speak to kind of all sides of the B2B e-commerce coin as we get into the Q&A. So really, I want to keep this thought-provoking, and hopefully the questions will come in as I present. But I would assume these are some of the things that you all are struggling with, or some challenges, or some questions you may have, right? Maybe some of you have made an investment in e-commerce, but your customers' orders are maybe coming in through EDI or other channels. Maybe you have stood up EDI, but not all of your customers are adopting it the way in which you'd like to see them adopt it. Maybe you've launched a B2B commerce site. Maybe you're on phase 2 of an e-commerce site, but you're not necessarily seeing the adoption that you would have hoped for, maybe the business case that you sold into the board. Or you're seeing supply chain disruptions that are affecting your business and ultimately affecting your customers' experience. These are the things that I've seen in my career, and we're seeing today. So what we want to talk about today is really recasting and redefining what a digital order is. We have a point of view that if you do that and you think through all channels and how one could digitize all channels, it could give you a different perspective on what your business case could be, what your return could be, what your internal staff could be, and ultimately how you keep your customers happy. So we feel like on our side of the business, an incoming manual order can be just as digital as an e-commerce order. We're going to kind of walk you through why we think that. Why do customers want to digitize orders? It should be pretty self-evident. They want to grow business, so we want to use our e-commerce channel to maybe acquire new customers. We want to make it easier for our customers to do business with us. That's where we feel a true multi-channel approach to this makes a lot of sense. And we want to make sure that we can be as efficient as possible. If we can't force our customer to change, what can we do to become more efficient and better serve them? As I mentioned, I spent most of my career in e-commerce, and it started off in B2C, as many of you probably did, and then it evolved to B2B as we saw the market opportunity in B2B commerce. So I spent a long time there, and it took me to really understand this slide, to really take a step back and say, okay, what's the right way to think about e-commerce? What's the right way to think about an e-commerce strategy? And what tools, techniques, people, processes as a business need to succeed? As you can see here, the world I came from, commerce, as I defined it, and we defined it in my previous businesses, is a relatively small but growing piece of the overall order pie. Many of our customers, many of your customers will do a lot with EDI. Some are doing increasingly more with procurement networks. So whether it's Grady's Business Punch Out to Go or other things to help drive that, we're seeing a lot of customers invest there. What we tackle is that 42%. And when you look at that 42%, that's roughly $7 trillion of spend, and that's just in North America alone. We think the market opportunity for automation in Europe is as big. And if you do that, the returns can be significant, and your ability to predict an outcome and a business case to your board and your executives is really in your own destiny. And we'll kind of speak to that a little bit. So as you know, and I don't need to tell this crowd that B2B ordering and B2B commerce, broadly defined, is a very complex and complicated business. There are a lot of components that go into it. We've tried to take a step back and decompose it, if you will, broader than just the order. Because when we talk to our customers, especially in a world where supply chain is an issue, we start to see lots of areas for automation that can allow them to be nimble, allow them to be faster, and quite frankly, out hustle their competitors and win share, right? So it's not just about the order. It can be about sending a customer that you received the order, right? So an order acknowledgement. How do we automate that quickly? How do we then acknowledge the order, but then look at our supply chain to make sure we can get the product we need? And if we can't, how do we identify additional or other products that we could send to our customers? And then how do we send them an advanced ship notice? How do we automate the request for quote process to get things done faster and more efficiently? This is sort of how we look at it, and it's very complicated. And that doesn't even get into the complexities around the order, right? Custom pricing, tiered pricing, fulfilling from multiple warehouses, so on and so forth. So the question would be, why won't people just do what we've done on the consumer side, right? Like as a consumer, I don't know the last time I've been into a store, even before the pandemic, and I don't plan on going in now because the convenience of buying online just makes my life better, right? I can do it when I want, where I want, and I can have it shipped to my house sometimes in the next day, right? But when you look at B2B, what I learned as a commerce executive is the burden of labor is really on you, not on your customer. So when we take a step back and look at it through that prism, we can say, okay, what are the barriers to an e-commerce order? Then how do we think about an overall digital order? And these are some of the things that we've seen and work with our partner Accenture on why customers aren't necessarily adopting e-commerce at the pace in which we would have thought. And like I said, the reason it was a learning for me, but when you take a step back, it's relatively self-evident. It's not hard for them to go to an ERP system like they've done forever, raise a purchase order and email it to you. The difficulty is on your side. So what can we do to incent them to move away from this channel, move into channels that are more cost-effective for all of us, easier for them, where you can upsell and cross-sell? And those are the customers that we see are getting real e-commerce adoption. Ones who aren't assuming the customer will change or forcing the customer to change. One that will take a holistic view of e-commerce and do the right tactics and incentives to move them along the continuum for things like upsell, cross-sell, et cetera. Again, just a further point around where the burden of labor sits. Now, people have been trying to figure this out forever, right? No one wakes up and walks into the office and says, I can't wait to process manual documents in 2021. And people didn't say that in the 70s or in the 80s. So we've been trying to figure out how to do this for a long period of time. In fact, if you look at OCR technology, it's been around for a really, really long time, EDI as well. And now we're kind of moved into the portal and e-com world, and we're moving into open architecture. Headless is a topic. I haven't been in all the sessions today, but I would assume composable commerce and headless commerce is some of the things that we've talked about. And then, leveraging modern technologies like RPA. But again, it's still a major problem. And the reason why the problem still exists is some of the points that I made earlier. It's really difficult. These transactions that are coming in from your customer, they're being forced into a document. But when you really take a step back and look at it, there's all of that data is unstructured. There's variability in how that data represents itself on the form that you all are capturing, right? So maybe one day the order is going to be 1 page, it could be 5 pages. They may have a field here one day, a field over there. The other day it says, if this, then send to distribute out of a different warehouse, so on and so forth. So there's variability in the documents. And there's also inherent business logic embedded in that document, right? They buy by dozens, you sell by ones, so on and so forth. So when you look at the unstructured nature, the variability of it, and you look at the business logic, it's really hard to do this, because when you do it, and if you want to really hit a business case, it has to be done 100% accurately every time, and it has to be touchless. Again, these are some of the nuances that one will see when these orders come in manually, and you have to be able to address these things. And it can be super complex. This is an example from a customer who we work with. They're dealing with international businesses, and as you can see, there's a lot of things in here that are super complex, and you need to be able to deal with these things, because if you don't, there's a ship of benzene that could be sent to the wrong port to the wrong customer, and you have an unhappy customer. So we've taken a long time. We've taken about 15 years of trial and error and learning how to do this thing and learning all these permutations with many, many algorithms. And now with the advancement of machine learning, we can say, okay, when these orders come in, have we seen this one before? Have we seen this customer before? And we just, the machines are now getting smarter. Our models are getting smarter. We can say, okay, we think this is it. If so, we're going to pre-populate what we call a map between our customer and you. And then we're going to embed with technology that business logic and deal with variability in that form. So when the next time we see that order come in, where historically people would have to print it, validate it, rekey it, maybe they made a mistake, they have to go back. Now the order comes in, we extract it, we deal with those items that I mentioned, we integrate it directly into your backend system to where moving forward, those orders become touchless. So the business case is pretty straightforward. It's not dependent upon forcing customers to change. You can look at your business and say, okay, if I have 300 people that are manually touching these documents today, how do I allow them to do something different, automate that piece to allow them to sell a customer, better service a customer, identify alternative product to get to the customer. Every one of our customers today, and I'm assuming everybody on the Zoom today, has supply chain issues, whether you're a manufacturer or distributor. I talked to a large distributor the other day. The CEO of a $5 billion business, he has the product in stock. He doesn't have pallets to put the product on to ship to his customer. So and that's one of N number of examples of a supply chain that's just disrupted. So if you can manually get in front of that and automate some components to give your team time, not have them focus on a document, focus on a problem to solve for the customer, you're going to win. So that's a little bit of what we do, why we think we're different, and how it works. I'm going to hand it off to Laura now to have her walk you through a use case that will allow you as e-commerce executives to say, hey, what if I reposition this as I'm about digital orders, not e-commerce orders. So what we're going to show here today is how we can take our solution, automate these incoming documents, and flow them through your e-commerce portal to give your customer better insight, to allow you to show digital increase to your board, and ultimately hit a business case. So Laura, I'm going to stop sharing now and I'm going to hand this off to you, okay?
Awesome. Sounds great. So, as Ray was mentioning, right, we're in the digital world today. We want to automate documents and we want to really drive people to our commerce site or our digital channel. Kind of back to that problem that we have today, right? EDI has been great. It's been around for a long time, but this e-commerce is still at about 8%. And it's not for lack of trying. Everybody's kind of invested in some level of e-commerce, portals, things like that. But the inherent issue is that it requires your customer to change how they interact with you. And if you kind of think of it on the flip side, right? I talk to customers all day, and every time I bring up, hey, my vendor has decided that I need to now go to a portal and actually download something or go to an e-commerce site, I met with the CSR's frustration because they're like, now I have to do things twice, as opposed to just being able to get the order from email, manually enter it. And it's important because it really affects that digital channel and it shifts the labor from vendor to supplier or vendor to customer very often. And so what I'm going to walk you through today is, well, how do I drive more people onto my digital environment, have my customer not change anything on how they interact with me, and help me leverage the investment that I've already made in my e-commerce digital channels. And so what we're looking at here is you probably, all have some sort of similar portal interface. You've spent a lot of time building out the website, having your product numbers in here, your pricing, your quantity, and getting all that data into your portal. It allows for the customer to have that single pane of glass view into their orders and really understand, hey, where's my order summary? What's kind of coming out? Can I reorder something? Do I need to make an amendment to that? And it drives them to your website. The challenge with it is with commerce is even though it's driving them to the website, they're not actually ordering that way. So I'm going to walk you through how you can get your customers onto your digital website, get a digital order, and really become more efficient in the document automation space without changing the way things are done. And so if we look at it, back to its inherent challenge, customers are still emailing orders as they do today. And in fact, you probably don't want to change that they email orders to you today in this environment. You've got a PDF. Atlantic Coffee here sent me a PDF, and they want to order a bunch of things from me. If I look at it, rather than saying, hey, I got to have my CSR enter the order, I have to have somebody look at it in my ERP, do a swivel chair activity. Let's redirect this to a digital transformation channel that can deliver us the outcome and free up our CSR's time to spend time on more high value activities. So we think about, hey, redirecting an order, something like that has a technology that leverages AI machine learning to get you to that digitized order. And so when we're looking at it here, you can see similar to, any portals, you'll see some visibility into, well, what is my digital order channel? How much is coming through my digital channel? And how can I use this? I just got off a call with a customer recently, and they said to me, I don't believe it. I can't get touchless orders in a digitized way without either having a CSR interface with me or actually having the customer give me exactly correct data. Both of which aren't scalable solutions, and both of which won't get you to that digitized order and really getting that value of your investment. And so when we're thinking about the digitized world, we want to understand, okay, how do we get the document that comes into my e-commerce channel and also have my customer experience improved? And so the answer is simple when we think about it, right? How do we transform the data? How do we get that? Most of my customers that come to me tend to say, I've got a digital channel. I use optical character recognition. And, it does take the data off the order, but somebody's still having to touch every single order. And, the way I respond to that is OCR, it's dated technology. It hasn't caught up with the new digital age. And so things like, hey, if something changes on the page, or if there's a smudge on the page, all of a sudden somebody's still having to review every order. And it takes it from being a digitized order to really taking your CSRs to be data validators, which you don't want. That's not going to get you the increase in efficiency or the digitization rate that you're looking at. So first we want to think about it as, okay, how do we get that data and how are we able to handle that? And so Ray was mentioning earlier things like, my customer always sends their part number. Happens all the time, right? You might have a CMIR table. You've probably built out some cross references and product catalogs in your B2B commerce site or your B2B world. And you can see that, wanting to have that transformation, it's super important, because just because they order part 1, 2, 3 doesn't mean I can enter it in my system as part 1, 2, 3. And this is where marrying both your e-commerce channel and a digital transformation channel together will really give you that added benefit and the realization. Because
Laura,
things
can I pause you there for a minute? Because I want to make sure that's a point that when I was talking about, one of the drivers, it's to increase the overall digital order count. But I think the example you gave there is different, right? Yeah, I think what you were saying there is the e-commerce store it's setting up the e-commerce store has already provided the cross-referencing and the infrastructure to make it easier to bring those in. Is that the point you just made there?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the customers I was working with, was saying, I want to get more digital orders. I've already spent all my time and energy building this e-commerce platform. And so the easiest way to get something into my system is to run through my e-commerce channel. And so from a technology and IT perspective, that was the easiest way for them to do it. The added benefit was that now their customers got to see all their orders in their account summary. and they actually got a benefit from their customer side as well, without having to make a huge IT investment and increase the amount of time spent on integrations and implementation.
So then fair to say the IT investment that led to 7% of the industry revenue can be leveraged for the 42%?
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
And we're seeing it more and more and more today because it's a channel that works really, really well. The data is there.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And so when we think about that AI machine learning that Ray was talking about, it's transforming the data, because it's not always about what's on the order. It's just as much about what's not there. What happens if the customer just never gives you your part number? Or what happens if the customer has contract pricing and the price doesn't match the order? All of that is embedded in that digital world, and being able to say, hey, when I get a customer, it runs through an automation channel like Conexiom. One, extract the data. And what we do is we do extract the data with 100% accuracy, but two, transform that data so it can flow through my digital channels in my e-commerce. And that transformation is things like converting the part number, validating the units of measure, validating the price is correct, and really being able to get that order into your e-commerce channel touchlessly. And so, Ray, I know we've been talking a lot with different, folks in the industry today, and their biggest challenges that they have with getting those digitized orders. Is there any other kind of examples you can think of that, hey, this really has transformed the way I think about the digital commerce?
Yeah, I think it's as it relates to commerce specifically, the order. I think again, customers that we see are winning in this space look at it holistically, Laura, right? So they say, okay, I'm going to digitize everything, and I'm not going to force my customer to change. So what are the tactics I'm going to deploy? So we see customers where they can double down on EDI, they're doing that. Where they can get either maybe one-click reorder and or new revenue from a commerce channel, they're doing that. When they're seeing what they can do more to capture more share through an Ariba or a Coupa, they're doing that. And then increasingly they're automating our stuff. Now, what we're seeing is all of those orders, the mature customers are putting all those orders into a portal. So, whether it's, whatever the portal, whatever the company may be, my insert company name here.com, and they can not only see their e-commerce orders, but they can see manual orders coming from Ariba, orders coming from EDI, and they can then run analytics to understand cost to serve. They can get insights from how the customers are buying to do better marketing tactics, et cetera. So if you get all of your orders in one place, you can really do a lot with that to make your business more efficient and make your customer happier, give them more insight, et cetera.
Right. And that actually, one thing you and I were on a call recently, it was about upselling, right? And saying, hey, I've got this order. This is a complementary product to what you're trying to order, and being able to get those upsells as well. And really important to increase revenue and achieve that goal.
Right.
And so when we look at this, we said, hey, we got an emailed order. It's manual. We want to keep actually orders manual, but we want to get them to a digitized stream. So where you would get the data extracted, implement the logic, and then really drive your customer back to your portal. And so this example shows, hey, that order came in, the data was extracted, all of the validations and logic matched, and it was a perfect order that went through. From a customer's perspective, hey, I can now see in real time my order directly in my account summary. Which is important because, it's going to decrease the amount of phone calls that CSR gets and the interruptions in a day to say, hey, did you get my order? Where is the order? Did you have any questions? Or the emails that they spend back and forth with it. It gives a customer the ability to say, okay, you got my order and it came through. And here's what the order is. And this is all my details and information. So it really takes that all together. And it connects the world within the e-commerce and the manual orders. Is there anything, Ray, you want to add to that, or?
No, I think it's you know, again, I think you showed kind of what the art of the possible could look like there when you can actually see all the orders regardless of channel. And then, you know, if you start to think through using advanced, you know, analytics and marketing tactics, how you can really optimize, you know, your entire order flow.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, when I'm talking with customers too, I'm always met with one question. Well, great. It's a touchless thing. We've matched the order with the master data, but inevitably something may not match, right? The customer's buying behavior changed. We don't know what the part number is. You know, a couple of different areas where you could run into an order being stopped on exception. And so when you think about that, you know, you would want your CSRs to manage only by exception. So if you think about a world where, hey, my orders come in and I've got an order that something doesn't match. The customer's ordering a new part number that I've never seen before, or there's a challenge with my price because they're saying, I want to buy it at $10, but their contract price is $12. And what we know is AR is going to have a challenge at the end of the day because a lot of customers, they'll refuse to pay the invoice if it doesn't match exactly to the PO. And this is where managing those exceptions is really simple and easy. Brings it to digital form as well. Through Conexiom, you'll be able to see, okay, here's the order that came in. The order's on the left, the data's on the right, and something may not match, right? So it's not that, hey, I need to validate that the data is correct. It's, hey, this is a buying behavior that won't allow the order to be fulfilled and will cause it to stop in the process. And so for the example here, it's a simple example where the customer is ordering a part number that we don't have a reference for, we've just never seen. And as a CSR, I would go in and say, all right, no problem. I know that this is part number, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I go ahead and say, great, that's all set up. I'm ready to go here. What the machine learning is doing is it's remembering it for the next time. So you'll get that touchless outcome we walked through earlier on the next order that comes through. So you're really only managing those true exceptions that come in there. And Ray, I know, what?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add that's really our goal, right? So whether it's a customer that buys a lot from you or a customer that buys a little from you, maybe they buy frequently, maybe they buy infrequently, you know, leveraging the years of experience we have and the amount of orders we've seen, we can solve for all of those customers. Sometimes, you know, we hear you folks refer to them as the long tail. We want to be able to solve the entire manual problem for you, and that's kind of what Laura just kind of walked you through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at this point, every customer is really important in today's digital world, right? Buyers have more power, I think, than they've ever had in the digital world. Easier to look at different e-commerce sites, to get better prices, things like that. So we really want to leave every customer feeling delighted by the experience. And this is what digitizing it and bringing it to that digital channel will do. You know, thinking about almost giving every customer that Amazon-like experience when they send an order through to you. And so we think about it, you know, hey, I've used machine learning. It's now going to know what this part number is for my customer. I can go ahead and approve it. From my customer's perspective, now that order is loaded into my account, I can actually see the account summary. I know what orders are there and what items. And then of course, just behind it all, right? Because we're leveraging e-commerce, this is also creating the order in your system of record. So it's not just giving the customer a good view of where things are at, it's also creating the order on your side. And that takes, you know, roughly about 2 minutes on average for an order to be delivered. Actually, we have one of our customers, their orders are picked, packed, and shipped within 15 minutes of receiving an order. And they got a call from their customer and said, I don't know what you're doing, but, you know, keep on doing it. And then they also got another call saying, oh, I got to make sure my orders are pretty good because I just know you're going to get them to me fast. And I love it. And so this is really the idea of taking all those manual orders, right, back to, hey, we've got a ton of manual orders that come in. Let's move this 41% over to the digitized orders. And that's how you'd be able to do it, by leveraging some sort of document automation and document transformation, leveraging AI and machine learning.
Thank you, Laura. And I think if you want to maybe hand me the screen back, what I can do is just kind of look to maybe wrap up a little bit of the presentation and then open it up to the crowd. We've got a couple questions here, so I want to make sure we give ourselves some time to go through that. So let me just, there we go. So one, as Laura mentioned, we could run this thing through the e-commerce platform. It makes a lot of sense to do it. Ultimately, the complexity, and you all know this if you've gone through an if you've gone through an e-commerce implementation, is one's ability to integrate with a back-end system. As I mentioned, we've got 400 plus customers who do this for a long time. So these are the main ERPs that we've got integration frameworks for that we work with. So getting time to value is pretty quick. We get our customers live in as soon as 30 days. We're not dependent upon a third-party systems integrator to do it. And again, when you do that, you can really own your own destiny as it relates to the business case. I just wanted to kind of flash some of the integrations that we have, and then really get back to kind of the things that we think are the most important things, right? So one, to go back, rethink through the definition of digital. If you want them to use the portal, you need to incent them to do it. Don't force them to do it. Set KPIs across all of your channels, procurement network, EDI, commerce, manual, and measure the heck out of them so you can show either increased EBITDA, increased revenue, oftentimes both. Don't view this as a project, view it as a business, overall business. So the leaders in B2B are folks that we see this is a board level KPI. They look at e-commerce broadly. They look at what they're automating. They look at their touchless rate. They look at new e-commerce growth. They look at growth on Amazon, and they have a team of people that run that business like a business. And then I think most importantly, as it relates to e-commerce, whether it's your own site or a third-party site, make sure you set the expectations appropriately, because our experiences and my personal experience have been, if you build it, they may not necessarily come. So this is just a little bit about us. As I mentioned, Laura and I spent a lot of time talking about the order process and order management today. For those of you in finance, we've got the same story for AP invoice and procure to pay. Really happy with the growth we've seen year over year in our career. Our net promoter score for that's not a typo, that's real. When our customers use it, they love it. 70, we're super proud of that. That's like a Netflix number. That's typically, you don't see that in software as a service. We're really proud of that. And we really think we can help large businesses and small businesses delight their customer and deliver across all channels. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. We've got a couple questions from the crowd, and maybe I'll just go ahead and start to address them. So one, the question is, by digitizing these orders, which is amazing, we agree, how do you get buy-in from CSRs? CSRs feeling replaced, who like to control the orders placed, et cetera. Now that is a great question. So what we've seen from our customers is the solution isn't brought in to replace people. This solution is brought in to reallocate people to do more value-added tasks. And this is big company, small company. That's what we've seen. Or the solution is brought in so they don't have to bring in and hire a bunch more people so they can scale. So it's really being honest and upfront and transparent with the CSR and getting them comfortable that, no, this isn't to replace you. This is to make your life better. I don't think the CSR wakes up every day and says, I can't wait to manually process documents that could be automated. I think they get up and they say, I want to help a customer today. I want to solve a problem today. So that's how we do that. Okay, so that's really important to get that buy-in. And we have customers that we could, for this individual asked, if you want to reach out, we can put you in front of other customers who had this very same question, because that's a question we get a lot, from our customers. So that's how I'd address that. Laura, if you have anything to add there.
I would just add that I talk to CSRs probably about 60% of my day, just being in the market, and they come back and say, I can't wait to actually get rid of this data entry They're providing me information. We're collaborating really, really well together. I would just add, make them part of the project, right? Really sell the vision and the dream for them around it, and they'll be thrilled and delighted to be able to do other things.
So the next question is, previously we were limited only a handful of customers with the proper format in quotes, on their PO in order for them to import into our ERP. Has this changed? Yeah, I'm not sure if that's an existing question from an existing Conexiom customer or someone else who's tried to solve for this. So I talked earlier about kind of the three things that are important, right? Being able to deal with variability, right? Unstructured to structured, and the business logic. Well, that variability probably is synonymous with format. We don't care what the format is. If it's a machine generated document, our technology has the ability to extract that unstructured data, deal with all the variability, deal with the cross-referencing, deal with the business logic, and then turn that into a structured file format that you can then integrate to your source system, whether it's a commerce system like Laura just showed you or ERP system. So yeah, I'd say that's proper format is not something that we're concerned about as it relates to an incoming order.